Toxic friends are always picking on me and making jokes about me. What should I do? Hi guys, my name is Your Name and I'm 20 years old. I'm a second-year university student, but I'm completely confused right now and just don't know what to do next. A year ago, at the beginning of my first year, I met two girls with whom I began to live together in a dorm. We quickly found a common language, and I was sure that these were the very friends with whom I would have a strong friendship throughout my time at university. Everything seemed to be going swimmingly. We cooked dinners together, watched TV series in the evenings, and discussed everything under the sun, from studies to relationships. But the more time passed, the clearer it became to me that something was wrong. Our friendships began to crumble at the seams. One of them, let's call her Lisa, she is 24, sometimes made very sharp and unpleasant remarks. At first, I tried to ignore it, writing it off as her straightforward nature. However, the further, the worse it became. Once, when I was especially nervous before an exam, she said something so caustic that I burst into tears. And then she just shrugged her shoulders, apologized, as if it was an ordinary thing. Similar situations began to repeat themselves. She made me cry several times, but each time she apologized, and I thought that perhaps she did not mean anything bad. It was just her character. It seemed like it was still survivable, but one day everything changed when I had a terrible migraine. My boyfriend came to help me. He was amazing, taking care of me, bringing me medication, and just being there while the pain gradually went away. The next morning, he met Lisa in the kitchen, and that's when something weird started. She told him that she was worried about me because I allegedly had migraines almost every day, which, according to her, people experience when they are under a lot of emotional stress. She also thought that I needed therapy, and she didn't understand why I refused to admit it. My boyfriend, hearing this, began to worry that he was the cause of my condition. He even thought about ending our relationship because he didn't want me to suffer. But everything she told him was a lie. Yes, I get headaches sometimes, but they are related to changing weather conditions, and they are not migraines. And stress has nothing to do with it. Yes, my sleep patterns are sometimes out of whack, but they are related to school, not emotional issues. My mental state is better than it has ever been, and I don't need therapy. When I approached Lisa and asked her why she said that, she simply shrugged and said that she just thought so and decided to share it with my boyfriend. Her indifference to the consequences of her words astounded me. Plus, she regularly throws out phrases like, "I could never be as dependent on other people as you are," or "Your entire social life revolves around your boyfriend. It's not normal." And while I don't think that's true, her words make me think about how she sees my relationship. The second girl, let's call her Katya, is the same age, not as abrupt, but she is very dependent on Lisa. She is always tense, cannot stand even the slightest criticism, and easily panics over all sorts of little things related to her studies. Her constant nervousness irritates everyone around her, and she's also prone to negative thinking. I have tried to talk to her about this many times, explaining how it affects me, but she only nods and replies that this is her personality and she is not going to change. The problem is that I can't just cut off contact with them. We live together, and this will continue for another year and a half. I can't leave, and I don't have any other close friends in this city. I tried to make new acquaintances at university, but either our interests did not coincide, or people were already in their own groups and were not interested in new friends. What to do in such a situation? Maybe some of you have encountered something similar? But either our interests did not coincide, or people were already in their own companies and were not interested in new friends. I also recently started dating a guy, which has complicated things a bit. He's been great, always supportive, and always tries to help me when I have problems with my roommates. However, Lisa has been acting even worse since she found out about him. She constantly comments on my relationship as if she knows better than I do what it should look like. She might say things like, "You're too dependent on him. He'll get tired of you soon." Or, "You don't notice how he really feels about you." It started even before she met him. But when he first came to our house, Lisa decided to show her interest. She acted too friendly, tried to touch his hand in a friendly way, and seemed to do everything to draw his attention to herself. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, that I was too jealous. But even my boyfriend later said that he felt uncomfortable with her attention. She also started telling me that I was spending too much time with him. One day, Lisa came up to me after I had dinner with him and said, "I could never let a relationship consume me the way it did with you." It was like an implicit accusation, although I don't see anything wrong with spending time with the person you love. Katya, in turn, does not stand aside either. She does not make such harsh comments, but after each evening that I spend with the guy, she becomes noticeably colder and more distant. I tried to talk to her about it, but she only answers something unintelligible, which makes me feel like she is blaming me for having a relationship. At some point, I even felt that they were both jealous that I had a boyfriend, and now they are trying to make my life even more difficult. And so, I'm confused. On the one hand, I have this wonderful guy who always supports me, but on the other hand, I live with girls who are clearly negative about everything that happens in my life. And we can't move out. We still have a year and a half to live together. Now I am left alone, and it is becoming increasingly difficult for me to cope with the pressure from these two. Please give me some advice. How should I proceed in this situation? But as it turns out, this is not the only problem in my life. My parents have also recently started to put a lot of pressure on me, and they do not support me at all in what is happening. The most important thing for them is that I just study and successfully graduate from university. They believe that my main task is studying, and I should fully concentrate on this, and everything else does not matter. When I tried to tell them about my problems with my roommates, they responded with something like, "Don't pay attention, you're there to study, not to make friends." And when I mentioned that I had a boyfriend, they didn't take it seriously at all, saying that relationships were just distracting me from my studies. It was hard for me, because I was hoping for support from my family during this difficult time. But instead of helping, they increased my feelings of loneliness. My mom always tells me that my studies should come first. She thinks that if I get a degree, everything in my life will fall into place. She keeps saying, "Finish college and then you can do everything else. Boyfriends, friends, none of that matters now. The main thing is that you have a good degree and a good career." But the thing is, it's hard for me to focus on my studies when I don't have normal emotional support from friends or family. Every time I try to talk to my parents about how I feel, they just tell me I'm being dramatic. My dad especially. He doesn't understand why I'm so worried. He thinks college is just a phase. "You're not going to be friends with these people for the rest of your life," he says. "Just be patient. All you need to do now is study." It hurts me so much to hear these words because I always thought that my parents would support me in everything. But instead, they ignore my feelings and perceive me as some kind of study machine that must only give good grades. All that matters to them is how well I study and that I get a diploma. Everything else, in their opinion, does not matter. They do not understand how important it is for me to feel okay and emotionally in order to study normally. When my relationship with my boyfriend ended, I tried to talk to my mom about it, hoping that at least she would support me in this. But her response was, "See, this just confirms that you don't need a relationship right now. You need to focus on your studies." This literally threw me off. Instead of offering to help, or at least saying that she was sorry that I was going through this, she simply brushed me off as if my emotional state didn't matter. I started to feel like I was in a vacuum. On one hand, I had neighbors who constantly put pressure on me and made unpleasant comments. On the other hand, I had parents who only saw me as a student, not as a person with feelings and needs. I tried to meet their expectations and study well, but every time I had a hard time, I couldn't find support in them. I understand that they want a better future for me, but they absolutely don't see what's happening to me now and how difficult it is for me. I find it increasingly difficult to find motivation to study every day. I know I have to try, but when I face rejection every time, it becomes more and more difficult. My parents call and ask, "How are you doing with your studies? Are you keeping up with everything?" And every time I try to talk about something else, they either interrupt me or bring the conversation back to university and my academic success. I tried to find a way out. I thought that maybe I could talk to one of the teachers or the university psychologists, but I don't even have time for that, because between studying and household chores, I just don't have time to do anything else. When I tell my mom that I'm having a hard time, she just says, "Everyone goes through this, it's normal, you just have to be patient." So now I am in a situation where I have no support from my family or neighbors. My parents think that I should only study and not pay attention to everything else, and my neighbors make me feel even worse every day. I feel like I am stuck in this circle, and there is no way out. I don't know who to turn to for help anymore, because my attempts to find support have not been successful with anyone. Now I often think about how to survive this year and a half that I still have to spend with these neighbors, and how to cope with the pressure that my parents put on me. They want me to just study and nothing more, but it seems impossible to me without emotional support. Maybe some of you have faced a similar situation. How did you cope with pressure from family and others? I would appreciate any advice or thoughts on this matter. After breaking up with a guy, how long before I can ask him for a second chance? Today, my ex broke up with me during couples therapy. Our relationship had been deteriorating rapidly for the last 4 months, and I hadn't known how to cope or navigate our problems. This was our second therapy session, and it seemed like this was where we would find our way to understanding and healing. We were together for 15 years, and during that time, I could never imagine myself with anyone else. However, in recent months, as I began to realize that our relationship wasn't working, I tried to sort out my feelings. At one point, in an attempt to distract myself and find comfort, I started a short affair with another guy. He was sweet and caring, And for a while, I thought I could start a new chapter in my life. But the more time I spent with him, the clearer it became that I was just trying to fill the void left by my ex. When I was with the new guy, I kept comparing him to what we had. I realized that there was no deep connection between us that I had with my ex. Even physical intimacy could not overshadow the love and understanding that we shared. Eventually, I realized that I could not continue the relationship with the new guy. I broke up with him because I realized that I really wanted my ex back. But by then, everything had changed. When I went to therapy with my ex, I was full of hope that we could work things out. However, he ended the relationship because he saw no hope for our future. He told me that it was taking a toll on his mental health, and the counselor unfortunately backed him up by saying that it would only hurt me more to give me false hope. After talking openly about our issues when he came to get his things, we finally figured out where our communication failures were. I realized that I had misunderstood what he really wanted from me. My self-preservation and detachment had left him feeling lonely and misunderstood. Now that I know what he was missing, more non-sexual physical contact, it depresses me even more. He didn't want to stay, even though he said he was tempted to fix things, but he was sure that his emotional state demanded a change. I'm devastated. I can't sleep, I can't eat, and all I can think of is for him to come home. I don't know how I can live now that I realize how much I've lost. I would like to start making amends and working on our problems, but he doesn't give me a chance. I feel such deep sadness and longing that it has become unbearable. Every night when I go to bed, thoughts of him do not leave me. I scroll through all our memories in my head, all the moments when we were happy together, how I regret that I could not understand him earlier and did not see how important it was for him that I showed more tenderness and care. Now that I realize my mistakes, I feel that I have lost him forever. I wonder how soon I can approach him and ask for a second chance. Maybe I should wait until he's calmed down a bit and made a decision. Or maybe I should try to talk to him now, to explain that I've realized how much he means to me. But the fear that he might push me away paralyzes me. I'm afraid that he won't want to hear me out and that anything I say will be perceived as manipulative. Right now, I feel like I can't start a new life without him around. I know I need to work on myself, but how can I do that when my whole life feels like it's in tatters? All these thoughts and feelings are overwhelming me, and I just hope I get a chance to fix it before I lose him completely. Today, my ex broke up with me during couples therapy. Our relationship had been deteriorating rapidly for the last 4 months, and I hadn't known how to cope or navigate our problems. This was our second therapy session, and it seemed like this was where we would find our way to understanding and healing. We were together for 15 years, and during that time, I could never imagine myself with anyone else. However, in recent months, as I began to realize that our relationship wasn't working, I tried to sort out my feelings. At one point, in an attempt to distract myself and find comfort, I started a short affair with another guy. He was sweet and caring, and for a while I thought I could start a new chapter in my life. But the more time I spent with him, the clearer it became that I was just trying to fill the void left by my ex. When I was with the new guy, I kept comparing him to what we had. I realized that there was no deep connection between us that I had with my ex. Even physical intimacy could not overshadow the love and understanding that we shared. Eventually, I realized that I could not continue the relationship with the new guy. I broke up with him because I realized that what I really wanted was my ex back. But by then, everything had changed. When I went to therapy with my ex, I was full of hope that we could work things out. However, he ended the relationship because he saw no hope for our future. He told me that it was taking a toll on his mental health, and the counselor unfortunately backed him up by saying that it would only hurt me more to give me false hope. After talking openly about our issues when he came to get his things, we finally figured out where our communication failures were. I realized that I had misunderstood what he really wanted from me. My self-preservation and detachment had left him feeling lonely and misunderstood. Now that I know what he was missing, more non-sexual physical contact, it depresses me even more. He didn't want to stay, even though he said he was tempted to fix things, but he was sure that his emotional state demanded a change. I'm devastated. I can't sleep, I can't eat, and all I can think of is for him to come home. I don't know how I can live now that I realize how much I've lost. I would like to start making amends and working on our problems, but he doesn't give me a chance. I feel such deep sadness and longing that it has become unbearable. Every night when I go to bed, thoughts of him do not leave me. I scroll through all our memories in my head, all the moments when we were happy together. How I regret that I could not understand him earlier and did not see how important it was for him that I showed more tenderness and care. Now that I realized my mistakes, I feel that I have lost him forever. But my problems don't end there. Over the past few years, my parents have also been vocal about their dissatisfaction with our relationship. From the very beginning, they didn't take my ex seriously, believing that he wasn't good enough for me. They always said, "You deserve better. Think about your future." At some point, this even led to me doubting that we were for each other. Despite this, I always tried to find a balance between my feelings for my partner and my parents' expectations. When I decided to stay with him, they became increasingly dissatisfied. I remember one time my mother said in a fit of anger, "Do you know what you look like? You're wasting your time on someone who doesn't appreciate you." I tried to explain that we had a real connection, that we loved each other, but this only made them even more dissatisfied. Now that it's over, I realize how much their opinions affected me. When we started having problems, instead of turning to them for support, I tried to hide my feelings so as not to hear their criticism. They didn't know about my worries, about how difficult it was for me to be in a relationship that was falling apart. In their eyes, I was just a girl who should study and succeed, not experience emotional pain. How do I approach them now and tell them that everything they said only made things worse? I'm terrified of their reaction, because I know they won't approve of my desire to get back with my ex. In their eyes, it will mean that I couldn't handle their advice, and maybe they'll be right. I don't want to be the target of their criticism again, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like they might understand if I opened up to them. Now I wonder how soon I can approach him and ask for a second chance. Maybe I should wait until he calms down a bit and makes a decision, or maybe I should try to talk to him now, to explain that I have realized how much he means to me, but the fear that he might push me away paralyzes me. I'm afraid that he will not want to hear me and that everything I say will be perceived as an attempt at manipulation. Right now, I feel like I can't start a new life without him around. I know I need to work on myself, but how can I do that when my whole life feels like it's in tatters? All these thoughts and feelings are overwhelming me, and I just hope that I'll have a chance to fix everything before I lose him completely. I'm willing to work on myself and fix my mistakes, but what if he doesn't want to give me a second chance? I just don't know how to move on, and this feeling of hopelessness is becoming more and more overwhelming. Every night when I go to bed, thoughts of him do not leave me. I scroll through all our memories in my head, all the moments when we were happy together. How I regret that I could not understand him earlier, and did not see how important it was for him that I showed more tenderness and care. Now that I realize my mistakes, I feel that I have lost him forever. The day after the session, I couldn't focus on my studies. I sat at my desk, but instead of studying, my mind was spinning with thoughts about him and how I could fix everything. I decided that I needed to at least try to talk to him. It became clear to me that without open communication, nothing would change. I texted him, telling him that I understood how much he meant to me and that I was willing to work on myself. I suggested that we meet to discuss it face to face. Within a few hours, he responded. His response was cautious, full of doubts, but he agreed to meet. On the day of our meeting, I felt my heart pounding in my chest. I chose a cafe where we often went together, hoping that memories would help us find common ground. When I walked in, he was already sitting at a table by the window, looking a little tense. "Thank you for coming," he said, but I heard a note of alienation in his voice. I sat down opposite him and, collecting my thoughts, began to explain how important it was for me to fix what had happened and how I was ready to work on myself. To my surprise, he didn't interrupt me. He listened, but I noticed that his gaze remained cold. At one point, he said, "I want to believe that we have a chance, but I need time to think about it." It was like a blow to the heart. I couldn't remain indifferent. I decided to open up to him completely. "I need your help. I don't know how to cope without you. Please give me a chance to show that I can make a difference." His face softened a little, but he still hesitated. "I'm not sure I can do it. I'm afraid of being disappointed again." His words sounded like a death sentence, but I knew I couldn't give up. "I understand that this is difficult for you, and I don't want to rush things, but if we don't try, we'll never know what could have been. Let's start small, just talk more often. If it doesn't work out, I'll accept it." He thought for a moment and finally said, "Okay, let's try. But remember, I can't promise it will work." I felt relieved, but at the same time, I knew there was still a lot of work ahead. After the meeting, I returned home with new hopes, but also with a sense of anxiety. I knew that this was just the beginning, and that we would both have to work hard to restore our relationship. I decided that I would do everything I could to show him how much he meant to me. But unfortunately, things were going in an unpredictable direction. That evening, when I was going to write to him, I received a message from a mutual friend. She warned me that she had heard about his new acquaintance, a girl who seemed very interested in him. I felt the ground slipping from under my feet. Now that we had the opportunity to establish communication, there was a threat that he might choose someone else. Instead of giving up, I decided to take action. I knew I needed more than words to get him back. I knew in my heart that we still had a chance, but I needed help. I reached out to our mutual friends to find out more about what was going on. "Help me understand what's going on. I don't want to lose him," I asked. It was the last hope to fix everything and not let our relationship completely fall apart. How I wished we had the opportunity to try again.